everyone. I'm Dr. Peyton Tantz of New Paradigm Psychology, bringing you my weekly video. And today's topic is balancing the masculine and the feminine. So I'm super excited to get into some of this juicy, essential conversation about balancing the masculine and feminine within ourselves and as a collective. And so before I dive into the content, I want to invite you and remind you all that tomorrow I'm offering a special live event called the Alchemy of Transformation. And this is a free live Zoom call, 90 minutes, tomorrow, November 7th at 10 a.m. Pacific. And you can sign up just by clicking on the link in the description. And you will get an email in your inbox, and if you can't join us live tomorrow, you can get the replay video. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you, and if you can make it live, even better. But this is going to be a great opportunity if you would like to just get to know me and my work a little better. I will be offering an in-depth download of information and teachings and my unique way of putting together the teachings that I offer on the process of psychological and spiritual awakening, which is really about healing ultimately, right? It's about transforming ourselves from, a more hurt, broken state of being, a state of lack, a state of suffering, to a state of integration and wholeness and empowerment in ourselves. So this is really mapping at a large scale the process and looking at this from an alchemical lens. So what is the alchemical process involved in this transformation, and really breaking it down and really focusing in on the psychological dimension of the process, right? So when we look at psycho-spiritual awakening and transformation, there's many different dimensions or elements that are all interrelated, because it affects all aspects of who we are as a being. But my specialty being psychological, it will be focusing in on that dimension. So what is it that actually has to take place inside of our own psyches, and giving us some tools and key teachings to help leverage and open up the psyche to make more space, to be more self-aware, and to do the core shadow work that's required for this healing. So I will be offering a lot of supportive information for people on your journey, and then I'll also be telling you about my online class, which is the Psychology of Awakening, and I'll be giving you a deep discount opportunity to sign up for my class at a really reduced price. And also then you'll be able to join my online community, which is just a monthly meeting that I have for people that sign up for the class, that then you're sort of eligible to sign up for these monthly meetings. And if you want to become sort of a regular member and participate in the supportive community that we're offering. So that will be what we're doing tomorrow. I will be offering a little free gift, which is really yummy. And just love to have you. So please sign up if you're interested. And like I said, if you can't make it live, you will get access to the recording. So with that said, let's dive into this topic, which is actually related to what we'll be talking about tomorrow in the webinar as well. But going into this conversation about balancing the masculine and the feminine. Okay. So if we look at the process of psycho-spiritual healing and awakening and transformation, many traditions understand that psychologically, what is happening in that process is the integration ultimately of the masculine and feminine dimensions of who we are. So we're looking at this, I'm looking at this in this conversation right here as the masculine and feminine as archetypes, okay, as archetypal structures, which are the two core structures of creation. So in many creation myths, or stories. That is actually the understanding, is that reality, coming from a state of being one, the first movement into the act of creation, of creating this actual creation that we're experiencing here, is a splitting or a division of that one entity, that one reality, into two, which is the masculine and feminine. And in the Vedic Advaita Vedanta tradition, that's very explicit in terms of consciousness. Pure consciousness becomes the masculine dimension, and then the feminine is the creation, is Maya, and that it's the the conception energy, right, of the Shiva lingam, is the representation of that in India, of the lingam, the shaft, right, and then the base of it is the creation, the feminine principle, and that represents the male principle merging with the female and then giving birth to the creation, to this multidimensional world. And so that's the Vedic version of that. But in any case, this is really what I see after studying, so many different traditions and just coming to an understanding of it, that this is an archetypal reality that is expressed through a lot of different creation myths. Okay, and then it's also expressed in terms of the understanding of the process of becoming unified and whole as an individual human. So in traditional alchemy, right, in the Western tradition, the alchemical tradition, this process of transmuting base metal to gold is the actual physical alchemy in the vessel that they would, that goes through these stages of transformation that are symbolic of the human process of enlightenment, right? It's a version of the process of enlightenment that's expressed through this alchemical process of transformation. Okay, so in that, it represents the process ultimately culminating in the unification of the masculine and feminine dimensions of who we are. So we're looking, when I'm talking about the masculine and feminine here, I'm really talking about two archetypal energies that are universal, that are the two archetypal structures that are in creation itself, and there's different ways we can break that down, but they're also in us, right? So it doesn't matter what body you're in, what gender we are, the same situation is true no matter what, that if we're on a path of consciousness and healing and awakening, that this is a central part of the journey, is mastering the feminine and the masculine and integrating those two energies fully in ourselves as an individual. The healthy, pure, we could say divine masculine and feminine, archetypal masculine and feminine, pure masculine and feminine, just what those energies represent, and then how they're expressed, right, through our experience. So this is represented as well through the Jungian. Any kind of archetypal depth-oriented psychology also speaks about this process, and it's the same process that's represented in the alchemical tradition, because it's an archetypal process, right? It's like when the truth of how things are is represented, it's going to represent in many different forms, right? So we have the alchemical tradition, and then we have Jung, who's bringing that forward in a psychological language and looking at it as the process of what he calls individuation. Individuation is becoming an individual, an undivided human, right? Which means a unified human being that is unified, that's differentiated as an individual being, that's fully conscious, and that has unified the masculine and feminine, okay? So I'm just emphasizing here the same process is represented from a psychological pathway through Jung. It's also represented in the alchemical tradition in that particular way. And then we can also look at the Vedic tradition through, again, the Indian Vedic teachings on awakening, on sort of the physiological or esoteric spiritual dimension of the Kundalini awakening and integration. And there we have the same thing, where we have the two channels, the two energy channels in the body, one masculine, one feminine, and that the whole imagery of the two snakes that come up and then they cross at the third eye, and that is the unification of the masculine and feminine in that tradition. And then that's the kind of blasting open then of the crown chakra, right? Which is the crown chakra is the unity with all that is. So just sharing kind of all this as a background to really emphasize that this whole process of unifying the masculine and feminine within us is really the key to this whole process of becoming an awake and aware and integrated human. Again, no matter what your body is or your gender, it doesn't matter. This is the same on the energetic, spiritual, psychological level. The process is the same, ultimately, okay? So now each of us in our journey are obviously experiencing this journey of awakening and individuation and working with healing the masculine and feminine in ourselves, and then ultimately unifying them and balancing them is a unique journey, and each of us are going to go through that in our own way. But what I'll say is that I think there are some collective themes that we're all working with here, just based on the way things have been and the way things are in terms of the collective consciousness on the planet. And so I want to dive into that here for just a minute, and I'm going to be focusing specifically here on healing, on integrating the healthy masculine, okay, which is the piece that I really want to bring forward and emphasize here, because what this is part of my own experience, and also I believe the experience of a lot of other people who are in this awakening path, that, we've all, again, independent of gender or sex, we all have grown up in this world, in this current age, in a world where this last cycle that we've been in has been very out of balance in terms of the masculine and feminine. Okay, so I think it's all fair to say that there has been an unhealthy balance where the masculine energy has dominated and the feminine energy has been subdued, suppressed, demonized, devalued, right? So it's been this, the masculine being the high value, the way to be, the good, the thing to strive for, the highest value, right? Is this hyper-masculine energy. And then, the feminine has been devalued and suppressed and really unconscious, we could say, in a way, right? So we've all suffered from that imbalance, right? So we've all been affected and impacted in different ways. I mean, men and women here are going to have different experiences of being in this toxic masculine, out of balance culture, right? We're going to be affected differently based on also where we grew up and all the details, right? But I think it's safe to say that all people have been wounded and impacted by this phenomena, including men, for sure. And I think that's a really important part of the conversation. So we're all, no matter who we are, in a process here of healing the impact of this paradigm we've been living in, okay? This paradigm where this unhealthy masculine has become out of control, disconnected from the feminine, okay? And in a state of being that's hyper selfish in a negative way, all about exploitation, taking, dominating over, being grandiose, being arrogant, being, really just in the worst form, it's rape, right? It's the energetic of rape, of, taking whatever I want and at any cost. It doesn't matter. It's all about me having the most, being the best, number one, right? Okay, so that's the negative toxic masculine. That's not the healthy archetypal masculine. That's a negative, out of balance masculine. So, in the process of healing and trying to bring this whole thing back into balance, which is what we're doing, we all have to heal and recover and reclaim and remember the healthy feminine, right? And that part of the process has really been happening in a beautiful way. For, I would say, across the board, again, generalization here, but for women in general, that this women's empowerment, this different than feminism, okay? But like women's empowerment and this healthy reclaiming, remembering, and celebrating and bringing back forward this healthy feminine, okay? Which is all about, the emotional self, our emotional needs, being in a body, being in a relational integrity with life, right? Being in a relational and emotional integrity with life, right? That's the healthy feminine. It's the balance, it's the harmony, it's the taking care of the tribe. It's the taking care and using of resources, and alignment with the highest and good for all principle, right? It's also that female power, which is its own, that sensuality, that it's not necessarily a sexuality, but it is that kind of embodied female power that also is life-giving, right? Is life-protecting, but it's life-giving, right? That's the virgin birth archetype, right? And the Gaia, the earth, right? Just gives, it's just the power of creation, right? Life-giving energy. Okay. So we've all been healing, we've been doing that, and we are continuing, and there's there's a lot of people still working on that process. But what I feel is necessary now, and some of us are already doing this work, but I'm bringing it forward because I think it's really important to bring attention to, is the healing of the masculine and the reclaiming and remembering of the healthy masculine. Now, I know there's in the men's movement and all of that, this has been happening. I'm not, I recognize that too. So I want to honor that movement has been happening. I think that hasn't hit the mainstream in the same way for men as it has for women, right? So I think it's a little bit just in time, it's been a little bit behind in terms of the impact collectively. So anyway, my point is, and this is also, I'm just speaking partly to my own process here, okay? So I recognize, I'm not trying to say it's all one way, because everybody's on a different path. But I think collectively, in my experience, this reclaiming and healing of the feminine has really been happening. And in that process, this is the thing. In that process, we've had to, in some way, push away from the masculine in order to clarify what the feminine is. We've had to differentiate and know we're not having that toxic masculine. No, we're saying no to the toxic masculine. So in that process, though, we have to kind of differentiate from the masculine as a whole in some ways to really clarify and bring forward and differentiate what the feminine is. And so then, though, we have to reclaim and bring back the masculine to balance the feminine. And that's the part that I think is so essential at this time. And that I, in my own journey recently, have had a big awakening and integration of that piece that's been very powerful for me. And so that's why I'm emphasizing it here because I think it's really important for anyone who identifies with what I'm talking about. Okay? So we need, because I perceive, I'll say, that there's a lot of people, I perceive that there's a lot of people that may have that more empowered feminine and reclaiming of all of that, but that don't seem balanced with the masculine. And so I feel like the movement towards reclaiming the healthy masculine and bringing them together now is really important and necessary for us individually and collectively. So we need to remember the masculine archetype. And I'll just say, in my own life recently, that it's been a huge breakthrough to be remembering this and claiming it in myself in a whole new way around things like self-discipline, time management, these sort of functional, structural things that are part of the healthy masculine that help us to be fortified, to help us be structured in the physical realm in, I want to say it in a linear way. It's not necessarily linear, but it's like making a commitment. It's like, doing physical exercise and strengthening, right? Like that physical strength I see as the healthy masculine. So strengthening the body, moving the body, also being structured in a logical way and executing that in the service of whatever you're wanting to create or achieve. So again, this healthy masculine can only be effective in the way I'm talking about if it's in balance with the feminine. So that's the thing, is this is all about differentiating the healthy masculine from our association to the toxic masculine, right? Differentiating that and reclaiming and pulling out, reverse engineering, right? Pulling out the aspect of the masculine that is pure. And then when we bring those into balance, that's where the juice is here, okay? So I'll give an example from my own experience recently that I've attempted, I have the clear goal of a bedtime and a wake-up time that I see as being optimal in terms of my whole lifestyle, my whole diet and exercise, and how do I, this kind of what I'm calling the healthy masculine, like a structure that supports me through my day to do the things to take care of myself so that I can be optimal in my effectiveness, right, in my functionality. And so I have a goal of going to bed and waking up at a certain time. And then I have a certain goals in terms of exercise and diet, and I'm doing like the intermittent fasting thing. So I've committed to some structures that I'm really excited about and are really supporting me, and it's great. But I'm the toxic masculine, the reason why I in the past have rejected self-discipline is because it was associated with judgment and with disconnection from the feminine. So the beauty here is that when we have the healthy feminine online, and then the healthy masculine comes in, they actually unify and flow together in this beautiful, beautiful way. And so it's not that the masculine comes in and dominates the feminine. It actually comes in to support the feminine. In me, I'm talking about, right? So the feminine is flow and intuition and creativity and the beingness versus the doingness, okay? So in the past, I would feel burdened, or I would feel judged, or it was like one or the other, right? Like, okay, if I'm going to do, X, Y, Z, I want to accomplish, but it was like, it was, I could only do it if it was sacrificing the feminine. So now it's like, I'm not hitting my sleep time goals very much of the time, actually. but I'm working towards a goal, I'm closer or less close, different days, because I'm also staying in balance with the feminine. And that is nourishing me, and I'm loving it. So it's like hard to kind of explain this, but I hope it's coming through that there's, when the masculine and feminine are in balance, there's this beautiful dance between the two. And my feminine feels supported by the masculine because the structure's there and the structure is supporting the feminine. But the feminine doesn't feel overpowered or devalued at all. It's totally there too. But so there's kind of just this fluid dance between the two, and this like beautiful unification that's happening in the center. So I hope that makes some sense. I do feel like this healthy masculine healing and integration for all of us, for men and women and all genders, all bodies, is a really key piece. And that understanding these two archetypes as archetypes and getting out of this whole cultural distorted conversation that's happening around gender and sex and all these things, we need to come into what's really real inside, which is that these are two archetypes, okay? And they're really important to understand. They help us to gain clarity about who we are. And again, I do believe that this process that's expressed through alchemy, that's expressed through Jungian individuation, through Kundalini awakening process, right? There is something real about healing these two core aspects of who we are and unifying them ultimately, because that is what's called the inner marriage in esoteric teachings, right? It's the inner marriage of the masculine and feminine that then becomes this unification of the self and this this alchemical transformation of the human. That is what enlightenment is. That is what this state of awakening and transcendence is. When we are unified of these two energies, that coincides with this healing into an integrated state of inner unity in the heart, really. The balancing and integration of these two energies creates this unification alchemically. And that is the state of oneness. That is the state of being unified as an individual. And from that state of being unified within, then we are agents of this state of being, and we're able to relate to others in a different way. We're not projecting, we're not in conflict with this whole conversation about all of this. And that from a state of unity, again, it doesn't matter what, however we identify and express ourselves. But when we're in a state of unification within, that's what this is all about. And then we're able to relate to others from the heart and to create harmony, right, with others. And and then we're also able to be our best selves as creative beings. So I hope this makes sense. I feel like this is really a foundational piece to our development and our evolution as a species. And I will be going into this more in the webinar tomorrow, the Alchemy of Transformation, although I won't be going into this piece. That's why I kind of did a deep dive here today. But we'll be, like I said, we'll be getting into more the inner workings of the psyche and the identity of the self and things like that. And so thank you for listening. And again, please join us tomorrow. You can sign up, click the link in the description, and I will see you again next week. Okay, bye everyone.